Hello everyone, I am Tiffany the intern, and this is On the Road Worship. Last week we talked about the birth of Jacob and Esau, and that God will be faithful through our difficult circumstances, and that God is so much bigger than our human expectations. In this week's story, Jacob once again, up to his trickster ways, not only conned his brother out of his birthright in our last story, but also tricked his father into giving him his father's blessing, which basically confirmed the birthright that he acquired from his brother. So now Esau is very angry and is planning on murdering Jacob. So Rebekah catches wind of Esau's plot and wants him safe, so she tells Jacob to go back to her hometown, live with her brother, and marry a woman from there. So Jacob leaves and he stops for the night, and he uses a stone to protect his head, and he falls asleep. While asleep, Jacob has a dream of what is commonly referred to as a ladder, but was most likely a stone stairway that reaches from earth to heaven. And Jacob sees messengers going up and down this stairway, and God is standing at the top. But rather than use the messengers to speak, God directly speaks to Jacob. God then repeats the promise made to Abraham and to Isaac, saying that Jacob's descendants will spread far and wide, and all people will be blessed through him and his descendants. God also promises to stay with and protect Jacob wherever he goes, and to return him to this land. When Jacob wakes up, he realizes that God was indeed talking to him, and how significant this moment is. He recognizes that God is there even though he didn't realize it. And Jacob then takes the stone that he had used to protect his head, stands it up as a pillar, and anoints it with oil as a sacred symbol of his experience. One thing this story reminded me of is that God shows up in seemingly ordinary or even unusual or unexpected places in remarkable ways. In our story, Jacob says, "God is definitely here, and I didn't even know it." I imagine that Jacob was not expecting God to show up in this situation. It can be really easy to let our worries prevent us from seeing God working in a particular situation, or even God's very presence, only to recognize it later. But we can be assured that God is with us even when we don't feel his presence. It can also be very easy to forget the times when we do see God. I think one thing we can take from this story is that it is so important to recognize when we see God, and to remind ourselves of those times when we see God working in our lives and speaking to us. One theme that keeps popping up in this series is the steadfast faithfulness of God despite our circumstances or behavior. In this series, we have seen over and over how God keeps his promises even when the members of Abraham's family make very poor decisions. At this point in our story, Jacob is at a very low point. He deceived and cheated both his own brother and his father, and is now on the run for his life. But God is so much bigger than the mistakes that Jacob has made, and the ones that we make to this day and in the future. In Jacob's dream, God promises to be with him now and will be in the future, to protect him, and that God's promises will be fulfilled. God will not abandon Jacob because of sin or difficult circumstances, and he won't abandon us either. There are a few questions below for you to discuss, and feel free to leave any questions you may have in the comments. Take care, everyone.